So why don't we just go around and you guys tell everyone who you are?
Okay, well, I probably should start since I started the project. My name's Nora Leonard. I am one of the creators. I created Mystitech and the Lost Art with Frank Zovelberg. And little by little, we started adding additional people to join us. I think Joanne is the next longest standing member of the team, so I'll pass over to her.
Hi, I'm Joanne. I live in Australia. I discovered this and thought it looked like an interesting retirement project, and I was quite right. It's proving to be a very interesting retirement project, and I'm having a ball making this. And I guess I'll hand over to Cesare.
Hello, I'm Cesare from Italy, sometimes known as Corovia, and I joined during the second season. Initially as avatar operator, and then I ended up doing editing, voice actor, and a few other things.
I guess that leaves me. I'm Terry Britton, and I started out as an avatar operator, sort of like a puppeteer, just being with Kaname, and did that for a while, a couple of episodes, and then they started expanding my assignments, and I'm a musician and a composer, so they asked me to do some extra music additions to add to Chris's stuff. Christians, I mean. And then, so did some music, and now I'm helping with the sound as well. So I'm kind of the sound guy. We get the balance of the volumes at the end and the EQs right and everything like that. So that's me.
I should like to add that everybody who joins eventually ends up having a character.
Oh, yeah, I do have a character, too.
Yes, yeah, I created one just for Terry, and Cesare, he really got hit again and again with things. We would ask him one day, well, why don't you do this? And then the next day he'd be doing the editing. And then we lost our doctor, the guy who was playing the doctor. And Joanne and I decided to hit Cesare with that. And I think he took a day to think about it.
So suffice it to say that you all wear a lot of hats in this production.
Yes, it seems to be the way we work. Someone joins, and if they're not scared off by their first visit, we just start piling the work on them, and people just do it.
I think the way we hooked Cesare in was we needed some extras for a big scene. We were doing a flashback scene to the days when the DRC was in the cavern. And Cesare at that time was the leader of the AGMs. And so I think I approached him and said, would you allow us to ask if everybody that's at the AGM would be extras in this scene? We said, because we're using those avatars, we couldn't do it in a public neighborhood, which is where they hold the AGM. So we had to transport everybody to the Mystitech neighborhood, which is a private instance. And someone put me in touch with Pierre-Andre, who you might know as Mirfak. So he agreed to come in and transport everybody, use his magic and transport everybody. And he also played the other guy, Laxman. No, not was it Laxman? Who was the other guy Victor. He played Victor. And they weren't saying any lines or anything. They were just playing these characters. And after they did that, I kind of persuaded them both to stay. I don't think Pierre-Andre understood us for like about the first 5 filming sessions, what we were doing.
I was playing Kodama. I can't remember if someone turned myself into Kodama or I did myself.
No, you did it. You did it. Yeah.
Probably I already have some experience in the Holocline, so at that time but you did fairly well. Why don't you do some more acting? Think about it. The next day I was in.
And I don't know when you started filming. I think Ashura left. Ashura, who wrote most of it with me.
I was looking at was present at the editing session, and then at some point I started doing some bits myself.
Yeah.
And slowly I become I think now I'm the main, if not the main camera operator. And
Absolutely.
You are. The problem is
two
that you've
major editors.
proved to be so good at it. So we've
But
just
it's something you're going to be
made
given the
you.
good stuff.
Yeah.
We've just made you our cameraman.
I mean, Joanne goes in and films an awful lot of little pickups. You know, if we need a picture of someone doing something, which they're standalone, she will go in and film that because it's
And
easy
all the
for
special
her.
effects.
Yes, and she does
Yeah,
all that.
yes.
But
Yeah.
she will do a lot of the filming. And if we ever need to have a couple people talking while they're sitting down, Joanne will always film that as well. As in addition to Cesare, because that's if a character is talking while they're sitting down, only the camera operator, only you can see that. Whoever your avatar is playing, you can see that, but you can't. None of the other avatars in the scene will be able to see that you're talking. So it has to be the people who are filming doing the talking.
Well,
I have an episode where there's a large table and there are a few characters that speak in turn. All the scene is made by a single operator, or two. But
yeah,
they're all clips from the camera operator that combined.
it all definitely pays off. I mean, I'm about halfway through season 2, sadly, because I know there's only a few episodes of season 3. But one thing I have to say is when it comes to your camera angles and your special effects, it's like watching it literally is like watching a television show. It's delightful. You guys really have a good pace when it comes to choosing what angle and what scene you guys do. At least that's how it looks to me. I know you guys can see all the flaws and all the things you wish you could do better, but it's a delight for the viewer, I have to say.
I think you know, as you have played the game, we have learned how some things have to be avoided to keep that pace. It's the pacing. So we try to avoid people entering doors because the avatar operator lines up, you know, they shuffle into place. Sitting down and standing up, it's often we try to avoid filming that. So we do film from a lot of angles so we can cut. So for instance, somebody will shrug and then they'll start talking. Well, if you know from the game, the person who shrugs, then you have to wait a bit before they start the talking animation. So we film that from two different angles so that so Joanne or Cesare can cut between those two angles so there's not a big gap. So we've worked really, really hard, and I'm so impressed and grateful that you see that, to do these little finessey bits. You know, they're to me what really makes a difference. I mean, I can remember once, this was when Andy was editing, and it was episode 2, and it was the scene with Katja talking on the roof between Henry and Lucas. And Henry says something like, "Oh, I thought you loved the Dunny," and Katja jumps up and she says, "No, it's this place that I love." Well, of course, she doesn't just jump up and start talking. That just doesn't happen. So I can remember Andy and I spent like about an hour finessing just that one little, really simple bit to get it to flow smoothly, also to get her to you know, speeding up when she leaps up or stands up, you know. And it took up a whole hour just tweaking that to make it feel smooth and to get that sense of urgency that she was standing up and saying, "No, I didn't mean that."
Well,
That's
it
why it
paid off
takes
because
6
that got me
months.
to chuckle. It took
Yeah.
6 months. You know, that does bring me to a question. These episodes are released a few months in between each other. And it makes me wonder, like, I don't know if it's changed now that you guys have done this for a while. I mean, it's been like, what, 5 or 6 years since you started?
About
8
9.
years.
Yeah,
8?
nearly 9
Okay.
years we've been going.
Yeah.
How long does it take you to produce a single episode? Or maybe I should ask, how long of a session do you usually have to film scenes in an episode? Because just for the audience, yesterday they let me sit in and watch how they produce their show, and it was very informative and also very entertaining. But just doing that one scene took you guys about 47 minutes. So yeah, how long does it usually take for you to film an entire episode? Because essentially they are the length of a TV episode by the time you've finished putting it all together.
And that scene was only one line of dialogue, if you remember.
Yeah.
That was a very short scene. But one of the reasons it took fairly long was we had never filmed that scene before. So we probably, when Cesare edits it together, because he's editing that episode, we may go back for pickups. We may decide something's in the background that we don't want and go back and then pick up. There's an endless process of doing pickups. We do pickups. We do both audio and video pickups and special effects and visual effects pickups, because we send Joanne back to the drawing table.
And some effects
yes.
Yoda does.
Yeah,
Yes,
Yoda.
yes,
Well, he
yes.
does special effects.
Yes, Yoda and Pierre-Andre do special effects while we're actually filming, and that can, depending on what they're trying to achieve, that can sometimes make for a very, very long filming session, getting the effect to work while the avatar is doing the action.
Yeah,
And
everyone knows.
A few episodes we filmed in the Barrow Caves, and that took months to film between pickups and initial settings and so on.
Yes, the Barrow Caves. We used to dread going back to the bar.
Yeah, the Barrow Caves aren't very big, so like I'm seeing those and I'm thinking like.
Well, part of the problem with the Barrow Cave, it's not just the Barrow Caves, the egg
new
room.
angles? That too. Yeah, how many new angles you can come up with?
Yes, yeah. And there was one thing that we all really loved that Pierre-Andre did was, I don't know if you know this, but you can get the Barrow to link, but they only link how many feet in front? They don't.
I think it's about 5
steps.
paces.
So we had Alex walking along, he was thinking and he was walking, and this Barrow who Pierre-Andre was playing, and I think he just did this. We didn't tell him to do this, but he linked across the gap where you fall in to stop Alex from falling in. Well, of course, he had to try that several times, because the first couple of times he did fall through. He had to make sure we got it just in the right place. But again, that's the kind of thing that happens on set. We try these things out. That wasn't in the script, I don't think. I'd put that in the script. I think that was an idea he had on the day. It
wasn't. He did it, and didn't do it the way you finally see it, but he did it, and we immediately realized the potential of this. And so then he just had to practice, about 10 times until he knew exactly where to stand to do that link. And then, of course, we had to practice to make sure that Alex was walking to the right place, so that when the Barrow linked, Alex was standing right in front of him. So that shot took forever.
Yeah.
But it was really worth it.
Yeah. And the other thing with filming in the Barrow Cave, now Pierre-Andre discovered some really great lighting for the Barrow Cave, which we use in other places now. And he's programmed what he calls an event. To set up the lighting, he has certain events. So you just really have to, on your key, type stroke event and then the event number, and then that affects the lighting. So he's done all that. But the other thing that makes filming in the Barrow Cave, in the egg room, is that as the avatar operators are in some of those tight locations, you cannot see where you are. You can't see your feet. You can't even see yourself sometimes. And so it's down to Cesare, who's watching, or any of the rest of us who are watching it being streamed on Skype. He'll say, take 2 steps to your right or to your left. And of course, if you're looking at the mirror image, you have to make sure you say, the avatar's right, not, all that kind of thing. But it's some of those places, it's really hard to film because you just cannot see what you're doing.
No, yeah, and it's like you pointed out, the egg room is a very enclosed and tight space. So I think the phrase "suffer for your art" would apply here in regards to filming. So.
Speaking of tight spaces, is how it's so easy to put your arm right through another character.
Oh yeah.
especially if you're doing talking animation.
Yes.
So we always have
Yes,
to be mindful
or a
of
wall, or
a wall.
a table.
A piece of equipment. And another really tricky thing, which has taken us ages to deal with, is of course we have this Borrow named Shorty, who's tall. And once you create this tall Borrow, he cannot walk, he cannot move, he cannot do anything. I think he has idle animation, that's all. There are two things we learned to do. We design the action around him so that the other characters turn and relate to him. But another thing we learned to do is we use an ordinary size Borrow. Chezra films from below, so it looks like it's Shorty, in other words, taller. And then that Borrow does the turning or the walking. So that was another bit of finessing that we had to learn how to do.
Oh, we have one Borrow whose eyes are a different color.
We
Two
have
Borrows.
2 Borrows whose eyes are a different colour.
Oh, that's right.
And I put those in post, and most of the time there's an effect in After Effects which I use for that, and most of the time that behaves beautifully, and I just have to go through and just apply the effect to every single frame, and it all works beautifully. But there's just occasions where the lighting is such that the effect doesn't work, and then I have to paint the eyes in frame by frame.
And how long
we
does that
had
usually?
one recently where I had to put in the Borrow eyes, and I discovered that wasn't going to work, and so I said to Nora, I will paint these eyes in eventually. It's going to take a while. And sort of took this on as a background task, every day I would do a few more frames.
That's in the next episode that's going to be released, episode 14.
Yeah, I was just going to ask because I haven't seen any Borrow with a differing
Really?
color.
Oh,
Where are
you'll
you?
have to go back and
back
look.
then.
Which
All Borrow have different
episode
eyes.
are you on?
I want to say episode 9,
Oh,
or it might be 8.
They're
Well,
well
you
in.
should have seen Tiara. Tiara's the one with turquoise eyes. She would have already, you would have seen her speaking to Alex in the Borrow Cave. You may just not have
And
noticed it.
I think that's
yes.
the episode I just watched. Yes, I guess I didn't notice that.
Yes,
I was just
yes,
kind
if
of in
you-
awe that I was looking at a Borrow.
Yeah.
right, yes.
Well, in a later
Yes.
episode, Alex actually says, "Oh, I've just noticed your eyes." So he kind of points a finger at it. And then he turns and he looks at Champ and he says, "Oh, and yours are orange." So yes. So you obviously haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, there's probably quite a few details that go unnoticed at the first view. That's how much attention we're putting in. Even if it's something in the background and we can barely see it, we know it's there, so we want to get it right. We also use quite a lot of green screen. I just wanted to mention this bit because I think already not in the next one there's one particular scene that does quite a good use of green screen.
Yeah, I've noticed you guys have implemented certain things on the imagers. I loved seeing sort of that. I forget what episode it was in season 1, but one of the characters is doing a slideshow.
Oh yes.
And I love this. I can still see this happening in the cavern. One of the things that really excited me was you guys actually made the trek down into Agura, and you used the ferry.
The ferry is actually not from Mist Online. It is from the Open Cave. If you ever logged on to the Open Cave, you could take a ferry ride. They gave us the files, and so what we do is we page it into the game obviously in a private instance. We do everything in a private instance, so we're not disrupting the public game at all. We page. Oh my God, you just do not want to know the trials and tribulations of filming on the boat. Filming the boat.
Because one is that the boat is on a set routine and leaves the dock, and you can't stop it leaving the dock. Either somebody fails to get on the boat, in which case, of course, we can't film until the boat comes back and picks them up, or somebody gets on the boat and crashes, or somebody falls off the boat halfway through filming. So all the scenes that you see on the boat have usually taken a long time, because the boat just goes round and round and round, and it comes back to the dock every so often. It does this trip and then it comes back. And we would start filming and then we would have a crash. And that meant that we then had to suspend filming until the boat got back to the dock and picked somebody up.
Right, because you can't
And
link
then
to
they would get
anybody
back on,
the
and then
boat.
we would film again until the next crash. So every single filming, every single scene which is set on the boat is the product of an awful lot of people standing around trying to get
on the boat.
Get
Well,
everything working to film on
on
the
behalf
boat.
of the viewer base, I thank you for the suffering you went through for those scenes.
I'll tell you what we normally do when we're filming, like we did yesterday, is I can't remember who went. I think it was you went to the set, Chesra, and then we linked to you. This is why having Huru client is such an advantage. We can link to, somebody links to the location, and then we because we're lazy, but we can't do that on the boat. And you cannot. The other thing we do, like when we're filming on Dakota Rooftop, a lot of us just fly up there and then land. You can't fly to the boat and land on the boat. You can only get on the boat at the dock. So that is why it's more tedious than our other filming. And also, as Cesare was saying, the camera work is harder.
And there's those odd days that the character can't see the darn boat.
Yes.
You can see everybody
Yes.
on the boat, but can't see the boat itself. So you have to quit out and come back in again and hope you can see it the next time.
But then if you quit out and come back in, then we have to repage the boat.
Oh, then you have to repage it in.
And it's not, but the trouble is, if somebody quits out and comes back in again, everybody has to quit out, because if we page it in, I think I'm right in this, it's not in sync with.
Yes.
It's
yes.
in a different
for the old
stage.
people. For the people who were there before, the boat will continue on in its old schedule, but for the new person, it will start at the moment it's paged in. So they'll be on a different schedule, and they'll be trying to get on the boat when, for everybody else, the boat isn't at the dock.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm glad you appreciate it, because there's going to be more on the boat.
I love that.
So remember this, everyone, when you're watching the boat scenes.
Yeah. One thing you won't know is that episodes 2 and 3 were finished way before prologue and 1, because for 1, which is when they make the march down to the cavern, we were waiting for ages and ages. I don't know if you remember the Dirt project.
Yes, I do.
And Chloe, remember Chloe, who was in charge of that? Well, we were going to wait until she had that finished, and we were going to use their sets to do the filming. So we were waiting and waiting and waiting. We virtually finished 2 and 3, which is really what gave you, Joanne, the time to learn how to do editing. And then we decided to film, what's that other thing called, Joanne?
The Open Cave.
No, it wasn't the Open Cave. It was
it Drizzle?
Drizzle.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anyway, Joanne had Drizzle, Daphne had Drizzle, and Graham. The three of you had Drizzle.
Yeah, we were the only ones that ever succeeded in getting in there.
And so the whole of those scenes that use the Mist 5 sets were filmed by the three of them changing clothes, so that episode 1, when they're in the caldera, they would have to go back to the closet, because of course we didn't have the load clothing thing, changed their avatars. And so we just, like we would shoot Zarek and Gabe, we would shoot Katja and Alex.
Yes, because we're really proud of that, because there's 8 people in that scene.
Yeah.
And if you go back and watch it, you will realize now you never even noticed. You never see more than 3 characters on the screen at the one time. And that's because we could only get 3 characters in. So, of course, Nora had to write the script. so that all the interactions were between 3 characters. And then we had to work out how to film it so that we could have the 3 characters.
And I think Daphne filmed quite a bit of that. You filmed a bit of that.
Yep.
I
Yes,
don't think
Daphne
Asher wasn't involved.
Yeah, I don't think Asher was there. Probably Graham was doing some filming as well.
Now, some of the march down, we used the tunnels in Gira. I don't know if you recognize that. But then we used the Mist 5 again. We used that set. Now, of course, if Chesra had been with us back then, we probably would have done it in Deep Island. And it would have been a lot easier because we would have been able to access all those places. But yeah, so that's what the big holdup was. So we couldn't release 2 and 3 until we'd done 1. And that was the big holdup. How are we going to film 1?
And of course, after we'd filmed it, and a lot of the sets, places where we filmed, we wanted them to represent something else. So then in post, we had to do a whole lot of visual effects work to convert all those sets to look like somewhere else.
Don't misfire, but there's one scene between Gabe and Zarek that is filmed in a location in Uro Live, but it's a location that is usually very dark. So don't know if...
yes. You mean down in the library?
I'll leave it at that. So if you haven't recognized it yet, let you try to guess where it is.
I mean, that's something that opened up with us with Pierre-Andre, is he started doing this amazing lighting on the sets. And we've gotten better and better at that. And in episode 7, you've watched episode 7, haven't you?
Yes.
When they go to Garrison. So it's the scene after Morgan and Katya see Henry swimming outside the pod. And they go and meet Zarek and Thomas in the DRC office, the one that you see from the spy room. And Pierre-Andre kept doing better and better lighting of that. So he got the whole wall where there's a kind of bookshelf, looks really well lit. I don't know how many times we redid that because of the lighting, and we kept changing the lighting. We changed the lighting so the room looked great, then the characters looked very dark. So we just kept going back to refilm that. Oh, so many times.
Well, I was really thrilled to see that room because if I recall correctly, that room didn't have any physics in it. So you would kind of just fall through the floor half the time.
That's right. It doesn't.
So it was
somebody
under the floor, but all the tables and also even the walls are not there.
To put the.
It was actually Steele. It wasn't Pierre-Andre. Steele did some work. I don't know if you remember Steele. He did some work. He used to work on the cavern tours way in the beginning. And he, with Larry, he would put floors various places. Like he put a floor at the bottom of the shaft, which we filmed in episode 1. And he would just send us the scripts. He would create these scripts and send us the scripts. He was the one that put the floor in that spy room area. And he put the floor so you could walk from the spy room to that room. But now we have Pierre-Andre, and he puts floors everywhere. I mean, he does all kinds of stuff for us.
Yeah, the point for the scene is that all the characters are carefully placed so they don't collide with the table that is not solid.
Yeah.
Also, all the walking is done.
Yes.
Oh, yes. You don't want anyone to walk through it halfway through a table and be like, that doesn't look right.
And I can assure you, we have all walked through things you can't walk through on many occasions.
Like each other.
Let's talk about that aspect.
We certainly walk through each other all the time.
Of filming. Like, are there any fun bugs that pop up while you're filming, whether they be glitches or something unexpected? Like,
we showed you one yesterday, the finger, the wonky finger, but that's in Deep Island. There is another one we encountered in Deep Island 2 weeks ago when we were filming that totally contorted the head of one of the avatars. Do you remember? Oh, it was Beckon Small. We tried Beckon Small.
Oh, that's right, yes.
And it turned the head of the avatar into something that looked like a chicken head. Oh, we run into all kinds of...
There was a very funny bug with the boat.
Yes.
Sometimes it remains while you're not in the neighborhood, and then you start getting this boat floating in the middle of the neighborhood.
Yes.
Yeah, that was funny. That really happened. We would film the scene on the boat, and then we were filming something in the neighborhood, and all of a sudden the boat sails through the neighborhood.
It's like a horror movie disaster or something.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a boat flying. Okay, that's really unexpected. Why? Was it like tethered to your avatar or something?
No, what happens when you page something in is it stays in. And if you move to another set, it comes with you. So when we've paged something in and then we go back to our Relto, say to change our character, we'll find that set in our Relto.
Yeah,
I mean, you could go cloud surfing, so...
Yeah, it's a problem you see with regular players that visit the boat ages and come back with some special effects.
Yeah.
But they always recommend to close the client. It's the same problem. When these special effects are paged in, they stay with the avatar even when they link. So for us, it's often easier to just quit the game and reopen it instead of just trying to page out all the effects.
There's a set which I don't know if you will have seen yet. It's in the secure comms room. What episode are you on? Episode 8. You finished episode 8. So, no, I think that happens in 9. Well, it doesn't matter. I can tell you about it. It's in the set at a certain angle, the avatars all turn white like they're ghosts.
You're talking about the bathroom and the mirror?
No. We're talking about you haven't seen this set yet.
Okay.
Yeah,
you said Ellen, and I just remember walking into the bathroom, and when you look at your avatar in the mirror, he's white and ghosted, and it's funky.
Oh, that may be that's probably what's happening. That is exactly what's happening. It's happening in this other set. But we had to learn to be very careful to avoid catching any of these reflections. Or
there's a bug with the DRC vest. So every shot you see of Henry is done at a certain distance, because if it's too far away, the vest disappears.
That happens. And fat face. That is something that we discovered. Fat face. And the first person to get fat face was Pierre Andre, and he was playing himself. He was playing Mirfak in it, and we turned around and we looked, and he just looked like, his face was all puffed up. This has come about when we use the load clothing file too much on an avatar, and you have to go back in the closet and adjust the sliders. We were doing that yesterday. Joanne kept saying, Nora, come and look at me. Come and look at me. So I would go and look at her avatar to make sure it looked like what the character was supposed to look like. So we have to check each other for that. We have to check that we've removed our books. We've got to do all kinds of things like that.
So would you say that setting up a scene is probably what takes you the longest when you're producing these episodes?
Well, I don't know. I think all of the various stages can have times when they are very long. Certainly setting up a scene, we have to make sure we do all the steps. But then when we're filming, there's often so much we have to think about that sometimes the filming takes forever. And then there are some scenes that have practically no post-production. And then there are others where you put them in post-production and you don't think you're ever going to get them out again.
Yeah.
Editing is probably
and thank goodness for save position. You can save your position, because it's going to be a retake where you got to get back to that position and start over again.
Nora, I wanted to ask you a question without giving any spoilers or anything. I mean, if you want to talk a little bit about it, feel free. If you guys who are listening haven't listened to like seasons 1 or 2, you might want to skip over this. I'll put a note if there's anything. But the story for The Lost Art is a very interesting take on what could possibly happen in regards to Dunny itself. So I'm kind of wondering, what initially inspired you to write the story in this way?
Well, Frank Zavelberg and I, the idea came to me when Frank kept crashing out of the game, and I was sitting in the egg room waiting for him, and I suddenly thought, we could make a story around the egg. And we tossed ideas around about that. And then we had this idea of, at one point, it was an alien in the egg. So it was focused on that. And then Asher and I started writing. We have this 3-season arc, and we have really pretty much sketched out everything that's going to happen in the 3 seasons. But Asher has now got a full-time job. He's still playing Henry, but he cannot be involved in writing. So I'm doing that. I'm struggling because filming and editing is so much fun, working with the other people, that I'm like a baby step ahead of everybody, trying to get stuff for them to film or record. But the other thing that was a big issue with us was we wanted to keep to the lore as much as possible. So the only way to do that and not get in a huge conflict with either Cyan or other fans who are doing all their own projects was to set it in the future. So we started to think about finding some reason to send a team back to the cavern. So we close off the cavern and then we send the team back. So that's the basic story. Something dreadfully is happening on Earth, and they get this idea, even though the DRC have pretty much tried to keep everything a secret. Joanne's character, Beatrice, who is in the UN Special Projects Unit, and Zarek, who was also involved in that, they have taken over guardianship of the cavern and the archives. And they've basically made this decision to hide the fact that there are linking books, because they think this will cause problems on Earth with people wanting to steal them, for trying to get resources or whatever. But now there's this situation on Earth that these terrible things happening. They get this idea that there might be an answer down there, so they send this team down. And basically, the story is going to be contained on that. And I don't want to say anything else because I don't want to spoil it for you. I don't want to spoil it for anybody listening about what's going to happen. But it's a 3-season arc. So this is our last season. Some of us are just hoping we're going to make it to the end because it takes so long to make these episodes. But we think we have a very good resolution coming up. And another thing that happened, we did write to Cyan right at the beginning, and we never heard anything from them. So we just figured they weren't objecting to what we were doing. And you asked me yesterday what made you think of using the borrow. They just started to become characters in the plot, and we realized we could give them a voice. And then after we'd done written the first 2 series, I realized that at some point it was in the Bible that Cyan had given when they given over the tools, that you weren't allowed to do anything with the borrow. You couldn't, give them any story. Well, by that time it was too late for us. So we started putting in these disclaimers into the episodes saying, this is our version. Remember the great tree of possibilities. Everything could be different in a different world. And
yeah, I thought that was a nice touch, and I think that's something everyone should remember in regards to everyone's version of what's going on in Dini, because that's literally the fun of the tree of possibilities. If there are alternate dimensions or versions of this game, why not a scenario in which Dini is shut down for so and so many years, and these people come back, and there's nothing to do with the current plot that's going on. But and personally, I have to say, I like the way you guys have used the borrow so far. It makes sense. It fits within the universe, and it doesn't really step on anyone's toes. So yeah,
I'm glad, because we really think we've created some great borrow characters. You're going to meet more of them. Season 2 is really all about the borrow in the Lost Art. It's really about the borrow and how they've come to work with us. So I think you will be pleased about that.
One thing that attracted me to the Lost Art story, and I don't think this is a spoiler because it comes up right in the first episode, is that the characters don't have the Relta books and even the key available. So
yeah, that was
they
an
play
interesting.
by the original Myst rules. The linking books and ages are dangerous places, but using a book could be a one-way ticket. And I found that quite interesting.
It was an interesting take, because I looked and I was like, Where are their Relto books? Oh, they don't have any Relto books. Okay.
Even the battle are somewhat more realistic take, if you want, because we don't show them many powers, and also we show them motivations and the problems.
No, I applaud anyone who goes back to the original rules of linking, because the entire concept, without going into a spiel, of the changes that the Relta book causes to the lore and stuff was always a little too on the magical wishy-washy side of things. Like, so to kind of go back to the descriptive books, the linking books rules that were set forth in Myst through Myst 3. I don't know if 4 played with it.
You can understand Delta books in a gameplay reason, because you need a way to avoid to get the player back to a home base.
Yeah, on a gameplay
happens.
basis, yeah, it makes
But
sense.
For a story, I think it's more interesting to give more limitations than powers, and see how the character can work with those limitations.
Frank and I made this commitment to each other and to the story that we were going to aim for film realism rather than game realism. So we avoided anything that smacked of game mechanics. So Yisha is in it, but only as a historical character. And Zarek has read about her, and she has become the image of his muse. But we don't have Nexus pedestals. Joanne has to cover up every Nexus pedestal. We don't, and we developed these ridiculous in that who would put this on their hand rather than the wrist devices, because otherwise we'd have to cover those up in every scene we did.
Nora, so I have to say this before I forget. I love the little notification sounds that come from those things. They're so patriotic.
Ferguson?
Well, because it's the Air Force. It's the Air Force.
I know, it's such a nice touch.
Yeah.
So
and we also, Frank and I had a huge fight about this initially. He said, oh, if the DRC gives up the cavern, the U.S. military is going to come in. And I said, no, we're not doing that. We're going to stick to Sign at that point had given the tools of the game to everybody, and they've made the game free. So I said, we're going to do something to honor that. We're going to give the game to the UN. So everybody on Earth technically owns the cavern. It's a protected site. We made it a UN heritage site. But the Air Force Base, the local Air Force Base, is working with the UN to provide resources for this team and everything. But yes, so the wrist devices were handed out by the military, and we do use the Air Force songs as the message alerts and the calls. Yep.
And we have great fun designing all those things that appear on the wrist device. So, if you look at all those close-ups of the wrist device, Nora and I have great fun designing those.
Larry Fontenot has done a lot of graphics for us.
Yes.
He's done some. Yeah, I've got to be careful because I don't want to again spoil anything. But he's done some great graphics that appear on the wrist device. Oh, and that was another thing I was going to say. Once we decided we're not having the Nexus in episode 3, when Morgan goes to see Lucas. And they're standing in front of the Kadish Gallery, and Lucas is in a really bad mood. And he says, come, I'm going to show you something. He decides she's trying to calm him down, and he says, I'm going to show you something. And the two of them go off, and he takes her to the egg room, this place that he found. Well, when we first filmed that, we had them heading off in the opposite direction, and then it suddenly occurred to us, wait a second, we're putting the egg room in Corel. How are they going to get there? They're not going to walk all the way around the cavern wall. So we had to refilm that scene. So they headed in the direction of the docks. So then we started saying, I wrote to Larry and I said, I wrote to him and I said, how long would it take by boat to get to these various locations. And he said, well, it would take about 3 hours to get from the docks to Corel. So we started to have to work that into our calculations. We wanted to give you the feel, these people, like they walked down to the cavern. It took them they didn't know it was going to take them 4 days, but it took them 4 days to get down there. They go everywhere by boat or walk on the island. We have a lot of things on the island, like we have the team neighborhood we've decided is on the island. We've had to think of those things, and that has resulted in us refilming a lot of scenes, because we suddenly realized, no, they can't get from A to B there. We're going to have them walk in a different direction.
Yeah, I was glad when they were going down into the cavern how one of them said, I'm glad none of us suffer from vertigo when they're walking down that ridiculously thin path.
That was so funny.
And the thing that's so funny when it's Lucas who says that, what makes me laugh is that the Avatar is practically he's hugging the wall as he says that. But the other thing is, then we get Thomas. Thomas does have vertigo, which you find out in episode 5 when he can't stand, when they're in Kadesh Talisa. He can't go over to the vault because of his vertigo. Because again, episode 1 was pretty much written or filmed anyway after Thomas had already joined them. But he had joined in episode 4, but because we were filming 1 much later. We could, that was kind of a hint, not a hint, but it was a hint that somebody with vertigo was going to join the team.
And just a little piece of history. The visual effect in the big dramatic moment in episode 4, which you've seen, but I won't mention in case there's anybody listening who hasn't seen it, is the first visual effect that I ever did. What happened was we realized we were going to need visual effects. And we had this person, David, at the time, who actually knew about visual effects. And he said, well, he'd design them and then I could do them, because visual effects take a very long time to put together. But a lot of it, once you've done the original design, a lot of it is you just get on and do it. But then he got a job and ran out of time. And so I had to actually learn how to do the visual effects by myself. So I bought the book, the textbook, and I started working through. And after I'd gone through the first 5 lessons, lesson 5 told me how to do that visual effect. I said, oh, great, I can finally do our first visual effect. So the effect in there is the first visual effect that we did for the show.
I don't have a clue what you're talking about. Can you type it in the chat? Because you won't.
I'll type it in the chat.
No, that's episode 5. That's episode 5. That's why I was confused, because you said episode 4.
Oh, was I saying episode 4? Sorry.
Yeah.
You want to know something funny about that whole thing? I did not realize that's what caused the outcome of that until I saw the flashback to it. I was like, oh, okay, so he didn't just, all right, that makes sense. But it definitely paid off. It was a good visual effect. It added to it. That was so mean. I'm sorry, guys, but that was mean.
I didn't know that was, I forget things that the day after they happen. So I forgot that was your first one, because you did. The thing that I remember, and this is not a big spoiler, that you spend so much time. 2 things in episode 1. One was the door to the archives.
Yes.
That you did most of it. I did some of it. David,
you actually designed the door, and then I worked out how to do it. That was helped. Another big learning curve. Oh no, the first one I just did, but when we came back in episode 6 and you see the door again, by then I'd worked through the program long enough to find out how to do that properly. And so in episode 6, that door and passage is actually a 3D effect.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Joanne has learned, honestly, so much. And the other one that you did that just, to me, still I think is so impressive is when they come out, when Gabe says, Katya, you go first, and she walks out.
Yes.
And there's another story about that one, but she walks out, and we get the whole team standing, looking into the cavern. And
that's one of my favorite parts.
Well, one of the best parts. I mean, it's an amazing thing that she did, but the other best part about it is the music that Chris wrote. The whole music of them coming down out to that point, then getting down to the boat, then coming around in the boat to land at the docks.
If the map is right, this is it.
Wait a second, Zarek. Katya, why don't you go first? Welcome back.
I bet you're glad you're here.
Poor Chris. We sent that piece of music back to him, I don't know how many times, asking for this tweak, that tweak, change it completely, well, blah, 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 blah. And each time, he was really, that was the most stressful bit of music making he did for us. But the music is fantastic. The final music.
I was going to say, how much of that is original?
All of it.
Or all
of it, yeah.
Yeah.
They goaded Chris into doing this. He was using FL Studio. He's a rocker and a dance music guy, and they goaded him into doing soundtrack music. And he's been a real champ at it all these
and
years.
And of course, the other thing is that he's German, and his English is not particularly strong, and Nora and I don't have much in the way of German. We really don't have anything in the way of German. So, of course, when it comes to explaining to him in technical terms what we want him to do, life sometimes gets quite interesting.
And then we got Terry. Terry just has produced, he just produced a couple little bits of, I won't say filler music, but we got you to do a big piece that is just fantastic. There's a couple pieces you've done have been just fantastic. So Terry is now joint composer with Chris.
Right. I got upgraded from additional music to
yes.
composer.
See, production gives you many hats to wear.
It does. Well, yes. Chris is voicing a character. We got him to be a voice actor. As I said, everybody who joins ends up being a voice actor at some point, unless I don't think there's been anybody. There was one person a couple of people who just were not suitable, but they're not with us anymore. But yeah.
Some of you even get to sing.
Yeah, that's that was Frank.
More or less well.
Yes.
Graham
yes.
Sings. Graham sings too sometimes.
Oh, Graham, yes, Graham sings, and then you sang for the Christmas video. A couple of you did, yeah.
Oh yeah, that Christmas, terrible out of sync singing.
Yes, yeah.
Hey, but you all had fun, so I mean that's what that's.
We do. We have a great time.
We do, and it's so rewarding when we solve a problem, when we get something to work, even if it's just a tiny little thing, because we know what it took to create that tiny little thing. It's just so rewarding. There's one thing that Joanne did, and oh yes, we are making a couple of we're working on a series of videos calling the making of the Lost Art, and the one that's the most advanced is Joanne's video on visual effects. And there's one bit of work she did, which you might not have seen it yet. If you haven't, it's all right. It's not a spoiler. Look for it in episode 9. It's when Alex is in the Barrow Cave and he's got his backpack in front of him, and he stands up and he pushes the backpack forward. And just that whole little bit sequence, she explains in this video that we're making how she did that. And it's just it's a little thing of the backpack moving forward that just makes that just a gem. It's one of the hidden gems in so many that we've got.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, the whole thing is just packed full of little gems that we have put in because, we think they're going to make the show more entertaining. I mean, one that I'm particularly proud of, and this may have completely passed you by, is that there are a couple of places where we get an avatar walking through a place that you can't walk through because like at one point Katya walks through the fence in the cleft, and at another point in episode 6 Annie walks through that gate down by the dock, which is locked, and if you look at that you'll see that I've opened the gate and she walks through it.
Yeah, there's lots of things like that,
and there's lots of things that we've all done that have been like that.
The biggest thing for me is working with all these people, seeing their enjoyment, making sure everybody is having a good time, making sure that we're pushing everybody to develop some extra talent. But for me, in the writing is some of the scenes that are just so funny, that just make me laugh. There's a couple coming up in episode 14. There's one in particular on the boat, which I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, Terry, because Terry laughs every time we play that. And it's such a reward to know that this scene is something that I've created the words for. And, we've brought it to life in our amateur, dialogue. And it's still funny. But good drama, it's both. There's drama, there's sadness, but there's also these really funny moments.
That's been probably one of my favorite things thus far. Like, that's why I love the Vertigo joke so much, because okay, this is kind of serious. You're going down into the cavern. You're on this ledge. What can we do here? Either keep the drama going or have someone make a joke. And it fits. It's not like a forced joke too. So I really appreciate that. And I love during the presentation how you've got the one person watching standing up and raising her hand. He's like, "Would you please hold your?" It's fun.
Zarek, yeah.
Yeah.
Zarek's fun. It's great to poke fun at Zarek. It really is great to poke fun at Zarek. And Morgan shooting him, I mean, by accident.
Oh yeah, that was unexpected.
Yeah, Morgan, David, I love David, who has done some of the great design stuff. But he and I, when I get to record with him, so I like to write a lot of very funny Morgan Zarek scenes, and also the scene in the egg room with Vittorio Cesare when he falls into the room, and we found this. I don't think you won't have seen that yet, but poor Vittorio Cesara's character gets thrown in, I mean, literally in the deep end. It's not really a spoiler to say this, because the guy that played Lev, Dr. Lev, he left the project. So we suddenly had to introduce a new character, a new doctor. And so we made this character, Vittorio Brunetti, and he was literally on a plane somewhere else, because he's a UN doctor, and he was on a plane to I think he was on a plane to Turkey, and he wakes up in New Mexico, and he goes down into the cavern, and he's thrown into this totally wild place. But it's great having these new characters and being able to interact with them. And there's a lot that's coming up that I wish we could talk to you about, but you haven't seen it yet, and I don't want to spoil it. So you'll have to come back, or we'll have to come back, because we're coming to you to do this.
Great
Very
story.
binge-worthy.
Yes, it is. Honestly, it is nice to have something to binge. I have not had a show to binge in I don't know how long.
Yeah, and you notice
because you
go ahead.
You get the episode every few months, and sometimes even a year. So being able to see them one after the other gives you a better idea of how the story flows from one episode to the other.
Exactly. Yeah, like I said,
Also,
you guys have
the last few episodes we started using the premiere feature of YouTube. So it's also more interesting because we can chat with the viewers while we playing the episode.
Oh yeah, that YouTube's ability to like do the premiere is great. I've joined a couple of the things for like people who are doing reviews of certain TV shows, or if they have like a blog series going on. It's really nice to be able to sit there with the creators and give your feedback live. Yeah. You said the Lost Ark is going to be 3 seasons long in total. I'm a little sad. But do you guys, and maybe this is looking too far down the road, do you guys think you'll do something after The Lost Art? Or is this kind of just we're going to do this as a passion project and then nothing after?
Well, like I said, we're working on a series of the making of the Lost Art films, which will keep us busy for quite some time. Because again, we're wanting to make it as good a product as we can. So we had this idea the other day, or I had this idea when we started having sessions where the editing team get together and we record stand-in dialogue, so we can do editing of scenes that we otherwise couldn't. I think you heard plenty of that the other day.
Yes.
But while we were doing that, I suddenly thought, hey, for our editing video, we should show us doing this. And so we had this idea of doing it. Have you been in the loft, the set where, yes, you would have, where Lucas takes Morgan in episode, no, you won't have been
No, that's
sorry.
episode 12.
Okay, Elenin, the set Elenin.
Yes.
Set Elenin was originally, Dokimar made a set for us for, oh my God, it's in episode 12. That was originally for us, just the little house, the Dunny house. And she then built all this other stuff around it. And once we released that, because it's already released, you haven't seen it, but it's already been released, she could then make it a set where people could go visit, a place where people could go visit. So there's a room that's kind of like there's a big round table, and we suddenly thought, well, hey, let's use this as a kind of frame for the making of using the editing video. And we've asked Dubes to adjust it, which he's now done, to make it possible. Like, for instance, in this set, there's a table, and over the set is this lamp, which is like about a low lamp. It comes like about a foot and a half above the surface of the table. So we said, can you raise that lamp all the way up to the top of the ceiling? Then what we're going to do, just the way we did with Sarek's presentation, we're going to project stuff like editing stuff on the wall. So we'll have our editing team in our avatars, not our character avatars, our own avatars, sitting at the table discussing the scene that we're editing, and that will be projected on the wall. So we're working on things like that. There's
like that.
And would you believe that Dear Doobs, he even put in a coffee machine for us?
Yes, we asked for a coffee machine, so he's put a coffee machine in there.
Because you can't have an editing session without coffee.
Yeah.
This is true. This is very true.
So that's ongoing. Then there's another little video which may take the place of our Christmas video coming up this year, which is heavily dependent on Yoda's magic, which I have to finish writing it. It's from an idea that Lou, who's Yoda's wife, Yoda is Lou's husband.
One of the two.
Yeah, one of the two. I have to finish. It was Lou's idea, and I have to finish writing that. And it's going to be like not exactly a children's story, but Lou and Pierre-Andre are going to narrate it in French. And we're going to have English and German and Italian subtitles because we have people who can do all of that.
Very nice.
But that one, so that has to be released because of something that's going to happen in episode 15. This little video has to be produced and released before we do 15. So we're working on all these projects. We'll be going for another couple of years, I think. And
cool. Not a lot of stuff in the pipeline. I like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, it is, what can we do better? And how can we stretch ourselves? I'm thinking of Terry joining the team. One of the things he's brought to the team is he will say to me, as we're editing a video, why is that happening? And we will say, well, because it happened, and it's referring back to something that happened in episode 3. And he said, well, then you have to put that in the recap. So I now have this Terry voice in my head. When I'm writing a recap or when I'm writing the episode, I think, am I going to have to add something in the recap that's going to make Terry happy?
Terry kind of critiques everything before it goes to print.
He's one of the critical voices.
One of them.
We have a guy who regularly watches our episodes right before. He's incredibly detail oriented, and he can spot things that Joanne and I miss all the time, even though we've been watching the episode 100 times.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, when we sent the first time we sent an episode to him to check, I said in my email, run your microscope over this. And when we got the critique back, and there were all these, there is a pixel here and this sort of thing, I'm thinking, oh my God, he took me literally. He really did get out a microscope.
Yeah. But he did spot things that we just didn't see.
Oh, it's wonderful. Well, I used to be an editor, and one of the first things you learn when you're a writer or an editor is you cannot proofread your own work, because you will always see what you expect to see. And what you rapidly learn is one of the most valuable people on the team is the proofreader.
Mm-hmm.
Because they see it as it really is. And you get this message back from the proofreader saying, look, you say in this sentence that you've made 3 points, but I only see 2. What's your third point? And you think, that's really dumb. Did I really write that?
I always feel like the total bad guy when I cut something that we've already filmed and edited, and much more to the point, Joanne has spent 6 hours on adding eyes or doing some bit of visual effect work, and we've get to the point in the editing process that it just doesn't fit in there anymore, and to tighten the episode to make it really flow. I mean, the one, you will probably remember this, Joanne, but there was that one conversation with Alex and Henry.
That is the one I'm remembering, because the problem with that one was that I had put in the footsteps.
Oh, yes.
And then we cut the scene and we refilmed it.
In a
and
different
so I
place.
put in the footsteps again, and then we cut it again.
Yeah.
So I put the footsteps in twice for that scene.
Yeah.
Well, hey, look at it this way. You don't really have to feel like the bad guy, because you essentially just got a deleted scene, a bonus feature you can add later on after the whole thing is gone. We're back in season 1. Here are all the deleted scenes that already made it through post-production. You know, it's like a DVD or a Blu-ray, you know. Here's 20 minutes of extra footage. Well, I think that is all the questions I had for you guys. And I have to say, this has been a lot of fun. It sounds like you guys have quite a ball putting this together, and you have a lot more coming down the pipeline. So,
oh yeah,
we certainly do.
Don't shoot!
Oh my God, I'm sorry. Are you all right?
You shot me!
You guys better have a really good excuse.
The others are already in there.
Lapahi!
Ah,
And what are you doing here?
that's what I want to know.
Are you all right? Wait a second, who are you?
Vittorio Brunetti.